It's 5 o'clock. Are we going to give a few more minutes for people to join, or shall we?
We will start after maybe 2 minutes, 5-3. Then
Yeah.
people can
Okay.
join.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay. Let's start.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Welcome to the workshop called Seizing Future, Dynamics of Youth Migration from India and Sri Lanka, organized by Marga Institute in Colombo and the International Institute for Migration Development from Kerala, India. Of course, as an individual capacity, I worked closer to the Marga Institute for close to 20 years now, with both Amar team and also Mithil Pereira, who is currently present there. And my duty today is that I will take 5 minutes to just introduce you a little bit about IMAD work and setting the context for this particular workshop which we are doing right now, and also the regional collaboration which we are aiming at in the coming days. Let me start with just saying a few words about the IMAD. IMAD has set up 7 years back with 10 members, with the presidents of Professor K.C. Sakaria. We started this institute and it was emerging as a think tank for migration studies and allied issues. One of the main motive to start this initiative or the institute is to provide policy advice for both the central and state government and also beyond India, South Asia, and globally. Another motive to start this institute is to give a capacity building for young researchers in India and abroad, in terms of giving them a lot of packaged program, as well as teaching them on engaging with the big data, which is existing in several countries. This is the two objectives of this particular institute: capacity building and policy research. In addition to that, IMAD also continued to run the Kerala Migration Survey for last 25 years. We started in 1998. We completed 9 rounds. We have a panel data on migration in India for last 25 years. Probably this is the only survey exists globally for 25 years, uninterrupted migration survey once in 5 years. We also run a panel on aging surveys close to now 20 years, started in 2004, completed 7 waves. This is also available in the public domain. So we work in the broad area on migration and aging, which is also an important topic for Sri Lanka. And the topic which we work, it is not just limited to India. Everybody today talks about migration and aging elderly care throughout globally. And our interest to organize this seminar is also based on the work IMAR has done during the last 7 years. 3 works I just want to mention because my colleague Varsha and Rohit will talk to you on this. One is that Kerala Migration Survey. The last round was completed in 2023 with 20,000 households, and it provided that earlier youth only leave for work. Today, youth are leaving for studies, higher studies. Student migration is emerging as an important topic in the Kerala Migration Survey, fully funded by the government of Kerala. The second study which we have done is Indian students in Canada funded by the SSHRC program in Canada, looking at the process of student migration from India to Canada. And the third one is funded by the European Commission on Link for Skills, where we are looking at the migration corridors to Germany, Austria, and Netherlands, with several sectors, including the student migration to these countries. I think these are the 3 projects which currently we are doing, will be very much interested for all of you. And with these few words, I am asking Mr. Amar, Executive Director of the Marga Institute, to introduce his institute and also the Marga's work and objectives of the dialogue. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Rajan. First of all, I must say that I'm very thankful and I appreciate this whole initiative of having this joint webinar. And we are excited about the collaboration and the partnership that Marga would have with Marga just started with IMAD. And I believe there's so much of scope to understand about student migration, why people are leaving, what are the social implications of migration, what's the social cost of migration, so on and so forth. So for me, my task is to also introduce Marga Institute, speak a few words about Marga Institute, and also present to you the objectives of the dialogue. Marga Institute, as most of you, some of you may know, is actually started as a civil society initiative back in the early 1970s. It started as actually as a publication, as a journal, and then it converted into institution in 1972, 53 years ago. Initially, Marga Institute was involved in development research, looking at development from a multi-sectorial, multidisciplinary framework, looking at development not only from economic perspective, but also from social, political, and also value-based perspective. Right now, Marga Institute is conducting research in the area of access to justice, area of social cohesion, language rights, looking at how official languages policy is affecting, how it is maintained, how it is actually practiced in government institutions, which in a sense relate to social cohesion. We are also doing village studies, looking at urbanization, the aspect of urbanization. We're looking at how people view development, what their life aspirations are, why people want to move from one rural center to local center. We are looking at even migration at a very low age, migration of school children. As some of you may know, in Sri Lanka, we have a scholarship exam for year 5 students who are in the region of ages 10 and 11, for them to move into better or more schools with more facilities. That also has certain social implications. So those are areas, and I think Dr. Rajan and Imad maybe is talking about some of the areas that they are researching, that is the silver economy and downskilling of people when people go to other countries for low-skill jobs. So we are excited about working closely with Imad, and without further ado, I will ask Nipun, our research assistant, one of our researchers, to make a short presentation on the youth migration trends and what drives youth, what are the implications, and what sort of policy interventions should be introduced, or what sort of policy interventions uh, should be looked at. Nipun, I have your presentation here. Maybe I will
Yeah, here,
open
Mr.
up.
Let me share my screen because I made some last minute adjustments. So
Okay, so I
it's okay.
have
Wait.
Yeah, I have enabled you to share your screen.
Okay, great. So good evening, everyone. I hope you can see my screen. So I'm Nipun from Marga Institute and happy to be a part of the discussion. And as for my part, I will try to explain the overall picture of youth migration in Sri Lanka in terms of employment migration and youth migration. So this is the overview I'll try to look into. First, I will explain the trends in international migration, employment migration, and international student migration combined, and then we'll move to drivers and implications. So to put simply, migration is the movement of people from one geographical location to another. These can be voluntary or involuntary within the borders of a nation or across the nation. And when the purpose is education related, we can call it student migration. And when it is employment related, we can call it employment migration. So if we take world as a unit, it has become more migratory today than it was like 5 decades ago. For instance, in 1970s, the number of international migrants were around 80 million, simply because world has become a smaller place. Okay, since we are going to focus on youth migration, I thought age factor is important. So I have some theory. So in their work in 1981, Rogers and Castro showed that there is a age regime to migration, or in another word, there is a relationship between age and migration. So according to them, migration is high in infancy, low in early teens, rapid rise during teens and early 20s, and there's a peak between ages 20 and 25. If you look at the graphs on the left, you can see that there's spikes in the ages between 20 and 30. So let's keep that in mind. And youth are highly migratory in nature because they are in pursuit of a new life, and also they are fit to migrate as well. So these are some quick facts about Sri Lanka. So around 300,000 yearly departures are happening in Sri Lanka for employment migration. And there are over 2 million Sri Lankan expatriates living abroad with large concentrations in UK, UAE, and Canada. So if you look at the graph, you can see that there is an overall upward trend starting from 1986 to 2023. And of course, there are some few slumps. If you can observe, there is a slump in 2020. This is due to a global pandemic and travel restrictions. And then in 1992, there was Gulf War. And again in 2006, there was this world economic crisis. And apart from that, it has largely been an upward trend. And this upward trend has been driven by Middle East economic boom and demand for low-scale domestic workers from Sri Lanka. And if you look closer, you can see that Sri Lankan foreign employment migration has been largely female dominant, but then it goes down. This is due to domestic migration policy that intends to discourage female migrants from going abroad, because it was government's idea that and they thought social cost of young females living abroad is much higher than the economic gains they get at the destination. So this is the foreign employment by manpower level. Foreign employment in Sri Lanka is largely consists of blue-collar jobs in both skilled and unskilled categories, and these include domestic care work, construction, agriculture, retail, and hospitality, and also industrial processing, etc. And professional level foreign employment is marginal. However, it is also increasing. And key destinations are Middle East, especially GCC countries like Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, UAE, and Qatar, and that's for low-scale jobs. While some East Asian countries like Japan, South Korea, and are also picking up as favorable destinations for attract skilled workers. So when you look at the foreign employment by age and manpower level, since, by the way, here is a disclaimer, I have taken age 19 to 34 as young workers. So since 2019, foreign employment in age categories from 19 to 34 has been increasing. This is most notable in age 20 to 24. If you can see the red line here, you can see that it has been increasing gradually, and this category accounts for 57 of overall foreign employment from 2019 to 2023. So that's more than half. And if you see the graph at your right, you can see that up until the age of 34, the proportion of low-skilled foreign migrants are higher. So in other words, most of the youth migrants leaving the country for employment are unskilled. Okay, speaking of international student migration in Sri Lanka, it is not a relatively new phenomenon because it goes back to pre-independence times. However, those days it was limited to few elite families, students from these families getting scholarships and going to study in Oxford and so forth. But when it comes to early 20s, it became a more mainstream phenomenon. And many families, even with limited finances, take loans considering it a long-term investment and indicative of class status, especially middle-class families. And in Sri Lankan context, education abroad is also seen as a both academic opportunity and pathway to settling in developed country due to dissatisfaction with local conditions. So the globally number of international mobile students have been increasing. If you take the year 2002 and 2022, during this 20-year period, it has been increasing by 176%. And at the very onset, I should mention that Sri Lanka doesn't have a centralized domestic data collection system to track international student migration. So the picture we have is kind of fragmented and also clear. So while the predominant trend is to migrate to OECD countries like Australia, UK, and USA, there is a non-negligible share of students going to India, China, and Malaysia to study medicine and engineering as well. So Anglophone countries are more desirable due to familiarity with language, migration networks, and perceived post-student work and settlement opportunities. And if you see the graphs here, you can see there's a clear upward trend in international student migration since 2013. So according to my own study using digital traces to access the student migration seeking behavior, it was found that it has further increased, especially after economic crisis, and most young individuals are seeking to migrate abroad for a master's degree. The peak age category was 25 to 34 for both genders. Okay, desire to migrate also play a vital role in migration process. The aspiration ability model by Carling in 2002 desire to move and capacity to do so. You can see the picture here. So in order to migrate, there are two preconditions to be fulfilled. First one is aspiration and ability, and both are determined by individual level characteristics and immigration environment, and also immigration conditions as well. So according to the survey in 2022, 53% of degree holders and 45% of A-level qualification holders decide to migrate. So we can assume that it should also be noted that internal migration for youth in Sri Lanka is principally happening towards the Western province, which is the industrial and service hub of the country from rural areas. The 2012 census showed that Sri Lankans are not very mobile, even by Asian or global standards, with an ACNI below 9%. And they display early migration profile with peak age at 23 for both sexes, driven largely by employment for males and marriage for females. Okay, speaking of driving factors, there are both global and domestic factors. First, internationalization and commercialization of education. We know that even universities, they have explained that their intake and they are welcoming students of diverse backgrounds all across the world. So that has increased the student intake, and also it has become a commercialized a business opportunity. So especially in countries like Australia, UK, and Canada have created more accessible pathways for international students. And there is wide access to information has also played as a role when driving migration, because then you can know about the opportunities there and apply accordingly. And there was post-economic boom in Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka's post-conflict economic growth enhanced the financial capacity of middle-class people and enabling them to finance their migration process. And also there is this bottleneck in local higher education system because the university entrance here is highly competitive. Only around 5% eligible applicants are actually getting into university. So there's a huge demand for higher education as well. And then there is a proliferation of foreign affiliated institutions and agencies. So what happens in foreign affiliated institutions is that you can study for 1 year locally and then get yourself transferred to that affiliated university abroad. So this acts as a pipeline between two countries. And also visa agencies also encourage youth to migrate by coordinating and facilitating that process. So the whole process has become much more convenient. And also youth professionals' dissatisfactions with local conditions and high expectations has made them going abroad as a desirable option. And then there is peer pressure factor. The influence of peers, including friends and relatives, already above, play a strong role in motivating migration decisions. And in the case of blue-collar workers in youth, overseas employment is seen as the only viable route to upward social mobility, driven by domestic challenges such as indebtedness, poor working conditions, and low wages. So in terms of implications, the implications of student migration is mostly negative as I see it. It is not irrational to assume that most of these young people migrating as students have intentions of settling abroad. So in the long term, there is a brain drain, especially if they are not planning to return. And in short term, they will use the foreign reserves of the country to finance their tuition and also their living expenses. And also from individual perspective, migrants are inherently a vulnerable group. So student migrants lives can end up in places they don't expect. Many face discrimination and exploitation. And young professionals living for long term or permanently can affect the domestic human capital and development process in long term. It can also change the demographic structure of the household and of the nation as a whole, because if it is happening at a large scale, especially in the context of both Sri Lanka, India is having a lower birth rates and increasing proportion of older population. And on a positive note, obviously there are foreign remittances we get, and that increases the living standards of receiving households, and it's easy way out for government as well to address youth unemployment and local higher education demand in short term. And talented students also have the opportunity to pursue their dreams and live their desired life in destination countries, and opening pathways to generations to come. and there's a possibility of knowledge transfer once they get graduated. And for developing countries, having an educated youth community abroad can also be diplomatically beneficial, especially in terms of political negotiations and all. And also, youth employees abroad can return with acquired skills, capital, and investment to start their own enterprise, which will eventually drive the national economic growth. Okay, to conclude, we can say that both student and employment migration of youth is likely to continue, given the existing conditions remain unchanged. And from a policy perspective, we can't use coercive measures to restrain youth migration because it's their right. And even in situations where there's a clear negative impacts, having a strong data system is the key with longitudinal studies to understand true motives of youth to migrate. So the government can effectively address the root causes. Migration is not just about social mobility. It's also about spatial mobility. It's also about social mobility. So in the case of employment migration, upskilling the youth is beneficial for both the individual and the country of origin, because then they have a better options and better leverage. And even though it's not a simple task, the commitment to make a youth-friendly environment can also reduce the pushbacks. And finally, like many other collective societies in Asia, migration in Sri Lanka is a family project to upward social mobility. So migration has to be studied and understood in this context. Okay, that's it for me. I guess you might have questions and suggestions, which we can discuss in the Q&A session. Thank you.
Thank you, Nibun, for the excellent presentation on the youth migration from Sri Lanka, its implications, and also the benefits of both countries of origin and destinations. We also know that the agents, recruitment agents, play a very important role in pushing some students to some universities. There is also a big market, what is called the money market, playing a role. We will discuss more on that even in our presentation, which is will be presented by Varsha from IMAD, supported by Rohit. Varsha, you have 15 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes, yes.
Yeah, hi, thank you. Yeah, yeah. So Ajay will be presenting, and I'll start off. First of all, thank you so much, Nipun, because all those points, I guess, also adds on to when we take in youth migration on a larger context, even when we are looking at South Asia as such. Yeah, thank you. Just before I start off, I hope that everyone is on mute so that there's no disturbance, and we'll definitely take questions towards the end. But yeah, like I was saying, thank you, Nupun, again. I thought before going into the entire patterns and going into the numbers, I'll just tell you why studying youth migration as well as student migration specifically was very important for IMAD and India at this point of time. When we look at the sheer numbers, the numbers of students going abroad has drastically increased in case of India. Now, this is given, just like the case of Sri Lanka that we just saw, that this was bound to happen given the kind of globalization that we see, given the kind of advances that we see, and the increasing mobility in the country. But the dramatic rise, especially even in the smaller states like Kerala that we've seen over the years, has been something to really look into. Ajay, you can change the slide into the next one. Just to quote a little bit of numbers from our own survey, which was a Kerala migration survey in 2023. We conducted this survey in collaboration with the Gulati Institute of Finance and Taxation. And the survey covered about 20,000 households. Can we have the next slide? And some of the findings of student migrations were such. I think from 2018 findings, the 2023 numbers showed us that the numbers of student migrants is more than doubled. We were looking at a number of about 2.5 lakh student immigrants as such. In a situation where we were almost estimating that the number of immigrants will see a slow decline in total, it is a number of student migration and surge in student migration that actually led to the numbers of migrants from Kerala remaining almost the same. That was the kind of numbers that we saw. Like you can see in the slide also, 1 out of every 10 immigrants were found to be student migrants. And I guess this number is almost 11.2% of the entire immigrants from Kerala. And the major destination countries remain to be the traditional routes, which was Canada, UK, Australia, Germany. Can we have the next slide? But what really caught our attention is if you're looking at the kind of migration trends that has been captured Kerala as well as India as a whole, we are a country and a state of a lot of trends. If there is a trend, we make sure that we catch on the trend. And Dr. Rajan refers to this as the mad rush. That is, if one migrates, then as well as the next student migrates. If a kid in one house is migrating, then be sure that the next one also. So this trend is quite coherent in our entire migration history when we take Kerala's right from the Gulf migration to now the kind of rush that we're seeing with student migration. But what often goes unnoticed when we look into this rush is that there's a lot of nuances which kind of gets undercover, which does not get studied enough. And IMAT was very interested in looking at these nuances and understanding the various stakeholders that were involved in student migration. Some of the key stakeholders that we identified were students themselves, universities that were taking them in abroad, as well as the parents who had a very heavy influence on the students migrating. And a very important stakeholder tended to be the recruitment agencies that were helping students to migrate. And to understand this further, we were lucky enough to do this project in 2021, which was funded by the SSHRC, called Demino. Now, Demino was a decentering migration knowledge project with about 4 partner countries, India, China, Australia, and Canada. Due to the funding agency limitation, we were only studying Indian students going to Canada specifically. Can we have the next slide? And the study happened in 3 phases where we were trying to understand the prospective Indian students who were going to Canada, the Indian students who are already there studying in Canada. And like I told you earlier, we identified a major stakeholder of the decision to migrate for a student being a parent. So we were also very keen in understanding the parents' perspective of the students going abroad. Can we have the next slide? And these are some of the findings that we had from the study. Almost 50% of the students relied on the recruitment agencies to help them. Now, when I tell help, what we discovered in our studies later on, which was not part of the survey, but our qualitative studies that we conducted only to understand the role of recruitment agencies, that the recruitment agents not only help them, but also guide them in terms of actually taking their decision in terms of what courses they have to study, what places that they have to go. And even on our interaction with these students who are actually studying abroad, what we really understood is that a lot of these decisions are not as independent as one should be taking in terms of an important decision like education. If you look at the second data point, almost 55% of the students surveyed had enrolled for the master's degree courses. Now, the Kerala Migration Survey also came up with the finding that our youngest migrant is of 17 years of age. Today, the students who just completed their 12th grade are also migrating in large numbers. But this is the kind of courses that we saw majority of the students migrating for, which is for master courses of 1 to 2 years. And Nipun also stressed on this point in his presentation, wherein education is seen as a pathway to permanence. And this is something that was resounding in most of our studies too, that education today is seen as a path of permanence. Now, in the case of Canada, this was before the laws and the political issues that happened. We had done the study over the course of right after COVID. But this notion of aspiration as well as permanence when students migrate to another country remains the same. Can we have the next slide? And it is to study the same thing that from student migration, we did want to study a larger concept of youth mobility in general. Nipun also touched upon the youth mobility and labor migration also in his slides. Link for Skills is an important project that IMAD wants to look into because our KMS study also revealed the finding that migration to non-GCC country has been on a rise. And this is also in tandem with a rise in the number of people who are going into European countries. And these are majorly youth. And this has direct influence of European countries facing a severe shortages in various skill departments and various skill sectors. The Link for Skill project, what it intends to do is to connect a major set of origin and destination countries. And in India's case, we have identified 4 major corridors, which is with Germany, Netherlands, Australia, and Canada. And Germany being a very important partner for India to understand the kind of youth mobility, because the number of migrants who are migrating from India to these countries are primarily the youth. Youth are migrating for labor in terms of skill sector, as well as students who are increasingly migrating to the European countries. We have also tend to see in our interviews again, in our study again, we have also noticed that the saturation point for countries like Canada and UK has led to new trends of students diverting to countries like Germany, Austria, and Netherlands for their further studies. Can we have the next slide? Yeah. Before winding up, I just wanted to again stress on this point of how our study in terms of Domino as well as Link for Skill is a study that our studies that are trying to focus on understanding how and why students are migrating, but also to understand the larger concepts and larger nuances that are related to student migration. Nipun had pointed out very well how Sri Lanka student migration trajectory has followed up. We are also in search of understanding how this is happening in Kerala. But more importantly, what we really face is a dearth of data. Now, the Kerala migration was able to give us a lot of understanding in terms of students migrating from Kerala. But this is not the case in the whole of India. We do lack a central data points to refer to in terms of understanding the youth and student migrating from India. Most of our data is collected from the destination country perspectives. And what we really look forward to, and when we're moving ahead with a very evidence-based research, is to have a lot of data points for the whole of India to understand this issue further, to understand the various nuances of students as well as labor mobility, youth mobility from India and from Kerala specific in a much focused way. And what we really look forward to in our collaboration with Marga is to understand and to see what will happen when major origin countries like India and Sri Lanka, when they come together, what are the kind of studies that we can do? What are the kind of evidence-based studies that we can power through to understand more in terms of the different aspects of student and youth mobility from the country. Thank you. I think we can open to discussions. Thank you.
Thank you both Varsa and Nibun for the presentation. And we have 10 to 15 minutes for the discussion by the participants. Maybe 10 minutes we'll have questions, maybe 5 minutes, Amar, Nibun and Varsa. Something required, I will also respond. And then the last 5 minutes will be devoted for the future collaboration between Marga and Imad. It's open. You can raise your hands or you can, any question, comments, suggestions, ideas for collaboration between India and Sri Lanka.
Yes, please unmute yourself and ask the question.
Good evening, sir. My name is Mohan Rao. I am from the University of Hyderabad School of Economics. I'm working in labor economics. Recently, I attended a workshop in CDS, and thanks to Marga Institute, got an opportunity to talk with you. And recently, I'm working on this labor migration to GCC country from Andhra Pradesh. Now, what I found is now people are switched off to the GCC country to switch to the European Union, especially low-skilled labor. I have gone to the I went to the pilot survey. I asked to so many friends who previously worked in GCC countries, and now they are moving to the European countries. But if you look at the things, especially agencies play very important role. See, if you look at agencies play very important role, but when central came state like for Minister of External Affairs and the government of India came, they have set up rules about the agencies and the regular agencies and irregular and illegal agencies, but they charge like more than 3 lakh 4 lakhs. But still we have facing like migrant facing the problem to go to there. So is there any kind of policies? It's not only European Union, but still in GCC countries also, these agencies issued visas, tourist visa, so that they don't know this. Most of them are educated until 10th class, what we call matriculation. So my question is about it is better government come up with the new policies, especially control the agencies. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Anyone? Any other questions?
If I may just respond to that
Yes, please. Yes, Amar.
question. You say in Sri Lanka, we have what we call the Sri Lanka Foreign Employment Bureau that regulate the functions of agencies and also look at registers people who go out, especially on low skills and semi skills. But of course, the employment bureau does not look at student migration. They look at employment migration. But I think it's a very important point that Mohan brought out because in Sri Lanka also we have institutions that represent various universities overseas. And their task is to get as many students as possible for their semesters. And, I have been in touch with some institutions, but which they provide a good service where they actually, your researcher pointed that out, where they give a lot of information about what sort of courses to do, what are the best universities, what are the, the different costs involved when they go to those particular countries. They are given a kind of induction kind of program, what are the facilities that are available, how to operate that. So, but this is done in a private manner. But I don't think it is regulated even in Sri Lanka. But I think it's very important point that was brought up. Thank you.
Added to what Amar said, the India also, we have the Ministry of External Affairs, which has, registered agent, but registered agents only meant for sending people to abroad, but nothing special on student migration. In fact, that is something which we are not doing so much thing, because students, we feel they are left to anybody. I think that's why the agents are exploiting them, and it is too much they are doing it. In fact, some of the students are becoming even undocumented migrants. I don't know, some of the people who came by the undocumented from America who were students. Because you go as a student visa for 1 year, then you want to stay extra. If they are not giving you, you don't want to come back because you have invested so much money to go there. So I think this youth migration, I think it's not really organized in many countries, including probably India, Sri Lanka, even all. I was talking to somebody in Nepal. So we can think of a very good collaborative study on South Asian migration, student migration to outside the Gulf. And the point which you made was another one, Mr. Rao, is that many people, what they do, they think that Gulf, they cannot get citizenship. So they save money to send their children to other countries. So what is happening, then they can use the children to move out of Gulf, and then they settle down in Australia. And in fact, 40% of the Indians who are now in Toronto were worked earlier in the Gulf countries. So you can imagine this is going to be a very, very important point. We should look at it. And I saw one question called by Harshvardhan about the research areas on youth migration. I think one is the agents, one is the educational festivals. They are also coming and selling dreams to Indian students. They come to big hotels and they offer you seats and other things. And there are also universities also want to exploit the students because it's a big money for them. Many universities in abroad, 30-40% of their income is come through student fees from poor countries. So I think that is another topic you should look at it. And how many of them, they were promised like what is called the PR. If you get a student visa to America, you'll get a PR. I think which is not true. So how they were being tracked from this student to PR, I think that process also may be another study people can look at it. I will stop here, and Amar want to look at the next question. Arun Jose has a question. if students are required to return to India or Sri Lanka, completing what are the policies we have. And of course, Amar can respond on Sri Lanka. But India, we don't have a specialized policies to integrate them. In fact, we don't have a return migration integrating policies, not as strong as immigration. Of course, we don't have even immigration policy at one level. But the point is that if somebody who trained in America, Australia, Canada, they want to come back to India, they are getting good jobs compared to who have, for example, somebody is attending an interview at IIT or IIM, and somebody has a PhD from the US. I think the IIT, IIM prefer the US compared to the somebody who has done PhD in India. So I think there is a demand, but people don't want to come because they think they will get a PR. So for example, 2008 global crisis, when nobody was getting jobs in America, many of the Indian students came back and occupied a good position in IIT, IIM, Central University. They all joined that. We go to some universities, we say only foreign PhD. Why? Because they did not get nothing was available to them. I think this is something we have to promote them to return home. Returning home is something very important for us. Go and study, learn new skills, but you can come back and build your own country where you are born and brought up. I think that should be some type of thinking we should integrate into the youth minds.
One thing I want to touch on, Varsha in her presentation spoke about some of the courses that are available in India. There are courses that are available in India, but students still opt to go out of India and do it outside. So we need to, I believe, study the push and pull factors. Why are they going out? Is it something to do with the image? Or is it something to do with the employment opportunities where a foreign degree is more desirable than an Indian or a Sri Lankan degree, or a foreign master's is more kind of looked up than an Indian or Sri Lankan master's or PhD. So that is, I think, an interesting area that we as jointly we should study. And the other thing is when it comes to government officials, young government officials who are given scholarships to go abroad and study, they have to sign a bond. And if they don't come back during the stipulated period, their family has to pay that bond, whatever the value is. But I do not know how well this is monitored and how well it is actually implemented. So I think it's a interesting point that Arun Rose has pointed out. How can we integrate them? How can we attract them back to contribute to the domestic economy? So I think we have to make the environment conducive. Recently, on my own personal research, I was in northern province. I was talking to young people. When I asked them about their aspirations, what they want to do, they talk about going to another country. And when I ask, I think during the economic crisis, there was a survey done. Something like 48% of the youth said they want to go abroad. And when the question was asked why, they felt there is no future in this part of the world. So I think we have to make opportunities, whether it is employment or whether it's entrepreneurship or whatever. So I think that's one area that should be looked into.
Yeah, I think Mritul has added a point about doing role of parents. I think the study we have done in Kerala clearly indicate what Nikhil was a family project. Basically, parents decide which son should go to Australia. If they have more children, which daughter should go there. Also, what happened, there is a status symbol. People want to say that my son studied abroad, my daughter studied abroad. I think that is also a status symbol. And what I call in India, it's a growth of middle class. We have a lot of middle class families now with just one child or two children. They are ready to invest, they have a purchasing power to buy education abroad. I think that is also coming up in a big way, what is called the growth of new middle class. I call them new middle class. We should do research on new middle class in both countries. It will be very interesting. Who is sending their children to abroad? Not very poor people. Am I right? Because we done a study several years back, I think 10 years back, I did a study. And we went to some visa office, and most of them, you ask them, everybody say my both parents are working when they are going abroad, or one is working and they have a permanent income, they can take loans. So it's basically it's a new middle class emerging, which is sending their children. I think they should look at it. And the last point is very important, that people say they are going for studies. Recently, Canadian government said 40,000 people who went on student visa, they did not go to any college. They went on a visa to student visa, but they did not go for study. They are doing something there. So I think we should also look at it, is it really they want to go and study there, or they have some other motive to get the PR, or other motive to do some work and make extra money, because you may get 3 hours work, 4 hours work, you earn some money. I think that is something we should look at it very, very carefully. The motivation is really studies. You want to study some subject you don't have in Sri Lanka or India, or you don't have a good institution to that type of study, or just wanted to go abroad. Just for, because my parents have money, or we have some money, if I do that, I think these type of things, we should look at it very carefully on the family decisions. Any other questions? We have one more question we can have, then we'll go to the final session on the collaboration between Marga and IMAD. Another 2 minutes.
Sir, I have one question.
Yes, please.
Recently, Ukraine and Russian war, it impact on Indian medical students in Ukraine. So that, see, the cost of medicine in India is very high compared to the, Ukraine and all those things. Now they are suffering this kind of what we call shocks in economics. How these people are come out from this kind of shocks? Recently, Professor Arokya Raja came to University of Hyderabad and he addressed very clearly this issue. That is my question, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, because also it is not, because we have done some studies. We asked some of the parents whose children were stranded during the war. What they said, sir, we have to write a NEET exam in India. My daughter cannot write, or my son cannot write. And the Indian cost is around 20 lakhs for a private medical seats. And we can do that study with 17 lakhs in some countries. So I think this is also important, why people are preferring to go and study medicine in outside India. Of course, they come back and they have to write another exam to get equalizing that degree. But they are going to work in some other country, they don't need to worry. I have a degree from Russia, then I can go to work in America, there is no problem. But you cannot work in India. You have to do some courses. So I think there are several reasons for what you are talking about, the medical professional education, then engineering, then you have the normal graduates. I think we should look at it by the subject and its demand in both countries of origin and destination. Amar, we can go to our last session, last point of 5 minutes exactly. What next steps we can take it up between both IMAD and Marga. I think one of the things we discussed during our stay was, the sign an MOU between IMAD and Marga to start applying a project, not just with India and Sri Lanka, but South Asia. We can connect people because we have connection in both Bangladesh, Nepal, and Pakistan. So we can have a strong, I can also find some people in Nepal to sign with us later stage in Nepal and Bangladesh. I can talk to PIDS in Bangladesh, NIDS in Nepal, and also PID in Pakistan, so that we can think of South Asia cluster to take up not just on youth migration, but beyond that, something on, justice, something on, gender, something on economic growth, and why people are leaving. They said there is no hope in India, no hope in Sri Lanka. We can also look at it, the youth's perception about their own country. So I think we can pick it up. So we will start signing a MOU during your visit next month to IMAD. I think that is something we can finalize with my staff. We can do that. That is one thing I would like to say from my side. And second thing, what we discussed while I was there is that to send one of the faculty from the IMAD to come and spend 2 weeks, maximum between 1 week or 2 weeks spent in Sri Lanka. And similarly, from Marga, someone can come and spend 2 weeks in Kerala, just to know what is happening there, what type of data is available, what way we can take up new emerging areas and prepare joint proposals. I think this is something we can do. And we can also think of at least once in 3 months, organizing this type of web seminar. once in 3 months or even once in 6 months on the topic of our interest, on the topic of our own research, which we are doing in both sides. I think these are my ideas, Amar, and I will leave it to you and even Myrtle is still there. If you both of you want to say anything, we are open to that idea.
Yes, I think also we need to look at the student migration, because at least in Nipun's presentation, he made this point about students being most vulnerable sometimes. And also he spoke about, even in Sri Lanka, it's quite true. I have come across recruitment agencies who say, make promises saying that we can arrange your PR in certain countries. So there is an unwritten kind of promise saying, look, you don't really have to go to the university. You can go and do jobs there. And there are people to give you jobs. So this is an unexplored area. And I think there is very little regulation also. And we are looking at brain drain. We're looking at missing what you call the demographic incentives, or at this point, where the 20 to 30 year olds is very crucial for our growth and how they are moving out. And another area which was not spoken about, Dr. Rajan, is how the job market is operating, how the private sector, what sort of demands they place, whether there is more status in foreign degrees, and how they look at. So that's another area that is not explored. So those are definite areas. And as for the movement, or say your researchers coming to Sri Lanka and being exposed to our situation, maybe from outside perspective, when a person comes, they may see certain things which kind of inspire us or spur us to do further research, and also have a kind of policy forums, discussions on policy with various stakeholders. That is something that Marga would like to arrange and organize, because I believe we have, to a certain extent, certain convening power to bring these policymakers to one forum to discuss the critical issues. And we can look at it from a Sri Lankan and kind of Indian outlook or perspective, or we can look at a regional, because we, even with our affiliations with some other universities in South Asia, we can do this.
We can. I think you are right. We can definitely. I think I will allocate one of my staff to work with you on the student migration proposal, because anyway we have done some work already, so that we can prepare a joint proposal, and then maybe possible we can also add some partners from Nepal and Bangladesh and Pakistan, so that we can look for a larger funding to do the studies with the support from with your contacts in we all have contacts, but we should look at it how we can get the contact to fund our studies. And second thing, something which we are now working also on aging. We have also a project on aging and care economy, which we are developing a larger project in India right now, because Sri Lanka also an aging population, and you have almost 1 out of 5 is an older person now. And you might need the care economy, what I call them silver economy, of how these elderly can be utilized for the economy, because they are all silver economy. So I think we should also think of some studies on elderly. And the last one, I would say, we have also just finished a study on climate change and migration. And climate change vulnerability will be an important one in Sri Lankan context, because you are all covered by sea compared to India. We have some coastal belt, but you are all covered by all throughout, whole Sri Lanka is covered by water anyway. Am I right? So there may be, yeah. So I think we should also think of the climate change, agricultural vulnerability, and pushing people, because sea erosion, now the sea is coming little bit. I think we can also think of some studies, some emerging research on climate change and migration, aging and care and student migration, so that when your staff comes from your place to here, he will meet all the staffs, so that he knows what others are doing, then develop a project, and then it can be finalized when my stops comes there. When the visit of my stop 2 weeks and your stop say 1 week to 2 weeks, we'll have maybe 2 to 3 proposals to work on, to look for funding. When the proposal is ready, then we can sit together, you, me, and then talk to some hierarchy, both governments and the non-government, and then we can look for funding for a larger study.
Myrtle, Fahim, would you like to make some comments, some remarks about how we should go forward?
Myrtle, yes. Before we close.
Yeah, Myrtle, Fahim.
Fine word.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good proposition and ideas, to be honest, like that. It's a good starting point for us. So we are looking for the first visit actually, Dr. Rajan. So sometime in May or June. So start off that. So I think from there we can take it forward and see how we can do exchange and, make use of the participants of the webinar as well. So get their input. So I think I'm talking to your team as well to see how we can have one-on-one discussion with the participants, understand their perceptions as well. So we can come out with some policy recommendations for both countries, given that we are now coming to a situation where both countries are working on similar interventions and similar migration patterns and similar aging patterns are being noted now. So I think it'll be a good start for us to see how we can go from there.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you,
Fahim. I
Fahim.
think, yeah. So Amar, I think Myrtle is, we are not, Myrtle is opened. Yeah, Myrtle, yes.
Just to point out that we can gain a lot. Sri Lanka, we can gain a lot from the work that you all have done already, because you have done some extensive work on work and studies covering a much larger area than Sri Lanka has done so far on youth migration. And your suggestion about looking at the new middle class, I think that's very important for both our countries, and we may pursue that as one of the major areas that we can research. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. I think we are on time now. And thank you very much for joining this particular program. And I would like to see both Amar and the team visiting IMAD in first week of May to Kerala. So then I'll also take you to some universities in Kerala to see what we can do. And Amar, last word from you, and then we can close it.
Yes, I think we'll get back to you regarding the dates, because we are experiencing a lot of holidays in April, and I'll discuss with Fahim also the workload. So the dates may change a little bit, but by next week, by Monday or Tuesday, we'll be in a position to tell you, because we are going in for Sinhala New Year. There are about so many holidays.
No worries, no worries.
Yeah,
My staffs will be in touch with you. Dates are no problem. We can always work out the convenient date for both of us. Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Yeah. Thank you, everyone.
Vasha, also for your insightful presentation. I think thank you, Nipun, for the work you have done also. So let's keep in touch, and I will put on the chat.
Yeah. We should also thank both young scholars, Nipun from your place and Varsha from our place, presenter their findings to the larger audience.
Yeah, if anyone has any questions, they can direct it to my email address. I have put my email address on the chat box, so yeah, all the
Varsha also can give my email address if anybody wanted to have some chat later, just to put my email also to people, so that if anybody who's attending first time.
Sure, sir.
And I must thank the participants also for joining on a Sunday evening or a holiday. I think we had a very insightful, very fruitful discussion. And
thank you.
The future looks very bright for both organizations. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Good night.
Bye.